I pledge allegiance
to the flag
of the United States of America,
and
to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's call this meeting of the Town of Plattsburgh Town Board to order for September 20, 2010. Could I have a roll call, please?
Bernie Bassett.
Here.
Thomas Wood.
Here.
Gerard Renadette. Martin Mannix.
Here.
Paul Lemoyne.
Here.
James Coffey.
Here.
Rick Collins.
Resolution 306, approving minutes of the previous meeting.
Resolved that the minutes of September 7th and September 13th, 2010 be approved and the reading of the minutes be dispensed with.
Have a motion.
So moved.
Mr. Mannix, second.
Second.
Mr. Wood, any discussion? Roll call.
Thomas Wood.
Yes.
Martin Mannix.
Yes.
Paul Lemoyne.
Yes.
Bernie Bassett.
Yes. This portion of our meeting and where we invite anyone who would like to address the board to do so, please state their name and address, try and keep their comments to 5 minutes. We also have 2 public hearings. So if you're here for the public hearing, the first one on the master plan will take place in about 2 minutes. Anyone that would like to address the board and any other general comments? If not, I think we have enough time to move on one more resolution before the public hearing takes place. And we had a resolution 3010 that was tabled last meeting, request to abandon a portion of Firehouse Lane. 302. What did I say? 302. I'm saying 302. We had agreed to a couple of amendments in the second resolve. I believe you have that copy to read. Thank you.
Whereas in a letter dated September 7, 2010, Fred Levine, Highway Superintendent, has requested that the town board consider the abandonment of a portion of Firehouse Lane located in the town of Plattsburgh, Clinton County, in the county of Clinton, state of New York, in support of the request of Cumberland Head Fire Department to accommodate the expansion of Cumberland Head Firehouse. And whereas a section of the road approximately 300 feet has been considered for abandonment and is not used by the town and is only used by the fire department to access their garage. And whereas the current property owners who would be impacted by such abandonment have indicated in writing their support for said request and have indicated that the closure of that portion of Firehouse Lane will not impact access to their properties. Now therefore be resolved that upon review and acceptance by the town attorney, the town board does hereby authorize the abandonment of portion of Firehouse Lane as requested by the highway superintendent in his letter dated September 7, 2010. And it is further resolved pursuant to New York State Highway Law S-205, Section 1, the town board does hereby consent that the highway superintendent file and record a certificate of abandonment in the office of the town clerk for a portion of the Firehouse Lane being approximately 300 feet long and lying between the properties owned by the Cumberland Head Fire District on one side and by the Sorrell Irrevocable Trust and Marlene Ranch on the other side. All with all related costs to be borne by the Cumberland Head Fire District as indicated in a letter from J. Brown, Chairman, Board of Commissioners. And upon filing and recording of the said certificate, an affected portion of Firehouse Lane shall be deemed abandoned. And it is further resolved that the town board does hereby authorize the town attorney, town supervisor, and town highway superintendent to prepare and execute all documents necessary to effect this abandonment.
Have a motion.
So moved.
Mr. Lemoyne, second. Mr. Wood,
Yes.
any discussion? In that case, I'm going to go right to the roll call.
Thomas Wood.
Yes.
Martin Mannix.
Yes.
Paul Lemoyne.
Yes.
Bernie Bassett.
Yes. That puts us right at 6:35. We'll deviate a bit from our regular agenda. We have Public hearing concerning the comprehensive land use plan. I'd like to make just a couple quick comments concerning that. First of all, the town board has authorized and directed copies of the final draft of the comprehensive land use plan for 2010 be forwarded to adjacent municipalities and agencies for their comments, which has been done, and that a public hearing would be held on this date at 6:35 to hear from interested parties. The town had appointed a comprehensive land use planning committee, a committee that was chaired by Dr. Colin Reed. Phil Von Bargen, our planning department head, really in many ways co-chaired and helped steer that committee. And after many, many months and revisions, lots of research gathering, they have come up with a draft plan. And at this time, I have one document to submit to the record from Dory Kurtz, the president of the Development Corporation. I just share some of her comments. I won't read the entire text this evening. She notes it appears that the plan took considerably longer to move to final draft form than anticipated. This is not on its own problematic, but there are data cited in the plan that are now very outdated. To the extent possible, all the figures should reflect the latest data available, and they do not. For example, real property data included are from 2009, when 2010 data are readily available. Given that the plan has taken more time to develop, the implementation timetables should be extended, especially if the town's human capital resources dedicated to the implementation are not going to increase to bring the implementation to successful and swift close. The executive summary discusses a thriving industrial park at Park and includes low-wage scale stagnancy comments. While there are significant potential developments on the horizon, the last 2 years have not been altogether kind to the Park Industrial Park. The low wages remarks in the plan do not seem to correlate well with the comments about affordability. The North Country Shopping Center comments refer to new development. This initiative is perhaps better described as an adaptive reuse. Presumably, the former shopping center was on the Section 1 assessment roll, was then completely demolished, so that it is now a vacant parcel. Was the townwide assessed value reduced by the demolition? Characterization of new development, there should be restricted to development in the 72% of the town noted as undeveloped in the plan. There are several references to the need for housing for the working poor and seniors, but no data are offered about the historical vacancy rates in various existing subsidized senior housing or housing for the working poor. Nor is there a rational advance for the significant reduction in the number of workforce housing units. It might be interesting to see the correlation between educational characteristics and the employment sector's data referred to in Figure 9. Do the data imply or infer that high school graduates in the town of Plattsburgh can easily achieve managerial positions here? On page 104, the short-term recommendation notes IDA involvement with town board leadership. In Clinton County, the IDA is not a developer, but an incentives facilitator. The important Cliff Haven area does not seem to merit even a mention as a neighborhood. This seems like an oversight. Also, there does not seem to be any discussion of the recent negative changes to the view sheds looking from the various locations in the town toward the landfill in Schuyler Falls. Historical assess management or lack thereof has bred many of the traffic circulation issues on Route 3. The town should take on the leadership of this important recommended activity because New York State Department of Transportation, the Clinton County Highway Department, may not place as high a priority on these guidelines as the town should or does. In closing, on behalf of the TDC Board of Directors, I commend the town for undertaking this comprehensive plan, which with more up-to-date information and with a more reasonable implementation timeline can become an important part of ensuring the future success of the town of Plattsburgh. Signed, Dory Kurtz. Put this into the record. Is there anyone else that would like to make comment concerning the town's comprehensive plan? If so, again, we'd ask you to state your name and, for the record, address, and please make sure you've signed in. Good.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
I think when only 2 out-of-town people show up for a hearing, you could probably take the conclusion that everyone in the town is happy with it. So, but appreciate the opportunity just to comment on the plan is very well done. You certainly had superb advice and Dr. Reed and your version on here. As Bertie knows well, we were hoping that you would see fit to rezone the airport to allow for motorsports uses. We think that would, with no inconvenience to the town, bring in significant revenue and be a great job creator and source of employment. Our feelings in that regard are reinforced by a recent article by Dr. Reed, in which he spells out the arithmetic that results from tourist revenue, people coming, spending the nights, attend your fishing tournaments, and in his instance, the bicycle tour, and the fact that that kind of spending, not only the direct spending, but the result of it is full-time employment. So we have made our case to Bernie in the past and to the committee, so there's no point, I think, repeating that tonight, but we appreciate the opportunity to say something and commend you on your efforts. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else?
Of course, I have something to say. I would like to say it's a wonderful plan. I've been to all of the public hearings and the demonstrations. Everything that you've done, I've come to see, and it's a wonderful plan, but I did find a couple of errors that you might want to correct before you do the final edition. One of them, and this is in all due respect to the town clerk, I noticed that he is listed under the town board, and he's not a town board member.
Do you have a page number for that, Deb?
That's the beginning.
It's right at the beginning, the first page. I brought this up to Mr. Messinger when you had that demonstration here with all the maps on the wall, and he took a note, but apparently he didn't see fit to change that. And, I mean, certainly Ricky's done an awful lot in regards to this, but he just simply is not a town board member, and you might want to just make a little subdivision that he's the town clerk. On page 58, there was a change, and I'm not exactly sure that the last paragraph didn't exactly, the first sentence of the last paragraph on page 58 didn't exactly make sense, and the change doesn't make sense either. It says, Plattsburgh's, the original says, Plattsburgh's high total taxable assessment, which is related to its commercial real estate value, negates the need for a general town tax. I don't think that's exactly what you meant to say, and so we got to the revised final edition, and it says, Plattsburgh's sales tax revenues, which I think is what you wanted to say, which are related to its commercial real estate value, which it isn't, negates the need for a general town tax. So there's a little bit mixed up. The two, both of those statements are a little bit all mixed up, and I don't think either one of them is exactly correct.
And I agree with you, and you and I were both at the meeting when that correction was, or the need for correction was pointed out.
Yeah, and I think you just kind of mixed the two statements, so I think that needs to be looked at. And in alignment with what Adori said, things are quite up to date. I did notice that on page 48, there's a list of all of the pump stations, or lift stations, as you call it, in the town. And the original, the draft copy was, I believe, in early spring, and it didn't didn't name the Champlain Park lift station. And that was done before the draft came out, so you might want to put that in as well, since we spent a ton of money on it. Well, I think that's pretty much it. It's a very nice, it's beautiful, it's well done, Chase and Company did a very, very fine work with everybody else that participated. It's a nice plan. I think you've addressed very nicely some of the activities that are available in the town for wellness, and I think that was really important. I noticed that was one of the big changes that you did on the final draft. Thank you.
Anyone else? I just want to very briefly, and Phil, we should formally give you a chance to make comment as well if you'd like. I also found, even from the first draft, the reading of it exciting, as it took us back to the beginning and then through to the future, but definitely with a sense of community wellness, community connectivity, a real focus on the interconnections that we might make with our infrastructure, not only water, sewer, but the sidewalks, the recreational areas. And that really began to morph even more so toward the final days of doing a final draft, as other initiatives in the area also began to focus on the community wellness piece. And certainly that is a piece. And then how do you get there? And we've talked about that a great deal. What are the pieces that a municipality can do? What are the resources we have? How do we focus and prioritize while you still are fixing broken mains and dealing with limited resources and trying to control the cost of services to the constituency? It's like many things. As a homeowner, you may know you need to paint, you need a new roof, but we wait, and we wait for the opportunity, for the resources to appear until we have to in many cases. This is a very proactive document. Phil very much has really been a leader in that, and I commend him to make sure that we don't just create a nice document, but we actually take action. And many things have happened in the last 6 months to truly make an effort to do that. As we were talking a little before our meeting, tomorrow there will be a report on the, I can't remember the bicycle club. Help me out, Phil. What's the name again?
Yeah, it's a local
ACT?
Yeah.
And that has a little isolated incident. We'll link that to Bella, Quebec, and 2,000 visitors to our community. And truly, as you were talking about, the ripple effect into an economy, and what it does to the local restaurants, and somebody's son or daughter having a job that weekend because there's an event, and it's a healthy event. So there are a number of things we've really gotten excited about, and hopefully the document will continue to give us a mandate to get it. I don't disagree, and it's a pretty lengthy document. The gathering of data, and it's so important when we create a new document, the data is as current as we can make it. To the point of day of printing, if you have something new, you change that chart. Because it will be a reference document for all of us. But I just feel, I know there's a great deal of work and an awful lot of love that went into that. And I too was very pleased with the number of meetings. I know Mr. Wood and Mr. Mannix represented us as a board on that committee, but it was really a weighted community committee, and that's the way it should be. It's how the community saw the future. We just happen to get excited about it. Great job.
I did notice that some of the data is from 2000, and I wasn't sure if that's the latest data.
Some is driven by census, and how you gather demographic data is difficult. You go back to those kind of sweeping sorts of periods when you grab a snapshot. It tends to be the most valid, even though you may have other smaller studies, and certainly intuition, which we don't ever want to leave out, but it's not really valid. What we sense and what we see every day in our community. With that said, Phil, did you want to make any closing comments on the project at this time?
It has been to the town planning board, it's been to the county planning board. Both have acted in a unanimous, favorable way of recommending approval of the plan to the board, to your action for moving forward with this becoming the final document. The planning board has also looked at the seeker materials that have been prepared on behalf of completing that compliance requirement for the town board, and they have made a recommendation to you for a negative declaration determination. We will be providing you with that documentation. I certainly am sensitive to concerns about the quality of the data or the timing and age of the data. That was something that throughout the process that the board struggled with in terms of trying to define some point of cutoff. I mean, we were constantly moving into territory that almost seemed dynamic and moving. And I think that one of the nice aspects about the planning department that we have for us going right now is that this is all, much of the mapping information, for example, is GIS nature spatial data. And it would be a great project to go ahead and maybe work with the college in terms of keeping that data updated. I know that in-house we'll do what we can with it. It really would be something that I think that we could work with the college and take each of those individual maps and just continuously work them through the period of the life of this document to see if we can't keep it up to date. I would say, I think that the data, even if it may reflect it being a couple of years old in some cases, or some of the data that you're talking about that was the housing data or census data, does come from the fact that we approached this in the latter part of the decade. And therefore we don't have the advantage of the census data. There was data that was collected in New York State census data that's used in this document from 2005 to 2007, and that's reflected and incorporated into the plan. So certainly we'll have a new onset of information, and that brings to the attention of the town board, the life after this adoption of the final plan, how you treat it in terms of, does the content need to be refreshed with new data, or as many parts of this document kind of have a voice of their own, a voice that talks in a way that may not be so specific to certain sets of data that need to be refreshed on an annual kind of basis, but maybe on a 5-year kind of basis. But I thought that this document that the committee put together came out with a clear voice, speaking to the recognition of creating a sustainable town community, one in which we achieve a higher quality of life for the residents and the businesses here in the town, for now and into the future, and that the plan recognizes the value of a thriving community that has good paying jobs, along with quality housing. And this will attract new residents and encourage our children and our children's children to remain or to return back to Plattsburgh. The plan advocates for integrating places of work and play, commercial areas with public access and recreation. It strongly advocates for a healthy community, one that incorporates a pedestrian consideration into the transportation and accessibility aspects of the development in the town. It is based on factual information, of which I guess if people may go ahead and take some issue whether it's timely or not, about today's township. It includes a build-out analysis, and it has a discussion in it of specific planning issues. And then the plan ends with a vision statement with specific recommendations for implementation by the board. And I do hope that the board will go ahead and use this as a living document, become familiar with it, find those things in it that can be in the recommendations of the implementation plan workable, and to work toward those. And I hope that I'll do my best to go ahead and continue to bring it to your attention.
Thank you. Anyone else have any closing comments?
I'd like to make a couple comments if I might. One, I'd like to address, to rebut in a bit, some of the comments that were made by Mrs. Kurz. Number one, her comments regarding low-income housing. To me, I think there was a disconnect there. She referenced the excess low-income housing that might exist in the city, and they do have some issues in public housing in the city where it's not as, they've got room for people there, and seem to be lacking applicants. We would have been heavily criticized as a committee had we addressed the need for low-income housing in the town of Plattsburgh by referring to the fact that people could go to the city of Plattsburgh. I don't think that would have been well received at all. I think as neighbors, we have a responsibility to demonstrate that we're addressing the needs that exist within our town. And that's what I think that the plan talked about. And so consequently, I just think that particular series of comments were a little misguided, if you will. The other comment, the more important comment that I would like to make is just to praise the people that I had the pleasure of working with on that committee. The amount of work that was done was monumental when you realize that this was a project that has gone on for more than 18 months. People were meeting at a high level of frequency. I mean, we had committee meetings for most of those months. We had committee meetings of at least twice a month, plus we had subcommittee meetings that also went on. And we had a great response from the committee members themselves. They really put the time and the effort into that project. And I think they really are to be congratulated for the amount of time and effort they spent and the dedication that they showed to getting the job done. And I would be totally remiss if I did not congratulate Phil and his staff for all the support services that we certainly called upon. The amount of work that came out of that office enabled the committee to get the job done that they were seeking to get done. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else?
I'd just like to make a couple comments, and I totally second all the comments that Ms. Mannix has stated about the comprehensive land use plan, but I'd just like to say the people that spent all the time and came every other week at least for that period of time were Eleanor Berger, Hope Coyer, Glenn Cutter, Eric Day, David Kimmel, Betty Ann King, Tim Palmer, Colin Reed, Jerry Rosenbaum, Jeff Wagner. I think that it's important to recognize these people who spent an awful lot of their own time going to every meeting, or going to as many meetings as they could, and contributing as much as they could. And even when they didn't go, they would email comments, and they would send, information that they wanted included or for that particular meeting. So I was really happy about that. And I would like to make a couple of comments about the plan itself. The most important thing to me of the whole plan is recommendation 19 on page 102, which says, create a comprehensive land use plan review committee. I think it's incumbent upon us and the town board to have this comprehensive land use committee be ongoing. Not only can they review it maybe twice a year or every year and see where we're at and where we've come, but they can also make recommendations. They might even get into if there's people that have the time and are interested enough, they might even be able to be making the recommendations. It's very difficult to rely on our paid staff, who have many duties all the time, or the board, which is handling all kinds of different activities and different things that we need to be in touch with, to be able to come up with all the ideas and put forward the strategies and the leadership to make all these things happen, because there's so many good recommendations here. And I think that a comprehensive land use review committee would be the proper way to go about that. It also would be a training ground for people who might want to work on planning or zoning or other areas in the town. I think this is a very important part. And also, when we're talking about the plan, it's important to not let it, I've heard many times, you've said, many people have said, you can't let it sit on the shelf. Well, one of the things that you can't let sit on the shelf is going to the next step and doing the zoning. And I think that it's important that the board vote as soon as possible to recommend the company, which, by the way, Chazen was recommended by the planning board, and it was recommended by the Comprehensive Land Use Committee members itself, and they urged the board to proceed rapidly to going to the next phase. And the money was in the budget, and we should go ahead and get that next part done. I really think that's extremely important to get this implemented and to not let it sit. Let's get it to be an active document right off the bat. Let's start working with it. There are some things, such as the recreation master plan that was recommended here, that are already in process. But I can see there's many other things that we need to start looking at and hopefully progress with. And I think the main thing is to get that zoning in place. So that would be my recommendation, although there's many aspects I could comment on. Those I think are the most important.
Thank you. Okay. With that said, I will close this public hearing at 7:02 and quickly transition to our next public hearing, which I will open right now, concerning economic development open round grant application. This is a community development block grant program, federally funded program. We've discussed many times the town as a whole, the municipality may apply for funding up to a maximum of $750,000, or incrementally we may use that for a number of smaller projects rather than a whole. We've had before us a proposal to do a grant application in the amount of $100,000 to provide Haley Lumber and Building Supply assistance with their working capital that ultimately does create jobs and provide equipment expansion, I believe. I don't have the full grant in front of me. Anyone wishing to make comments?
I think this is we need to continue this process. I think it's a really good process in helping our community.
With this grant, and I don't have the total at the moment, but with this grant, it does leave some money we haven't exhausted, but I think this would be at least the second, if not the third, out of that full amount of money that we're eligible to apply for. So it's good to see it being used and put in the community for growth and job creation. Anyone have any other comments? There is no one here from the public.
Is this to be paid back?
This one is, I don't believe this one is. I was thinking of the last one with Schluter was not a revolving loan, it was a straight out grant, and I believe this one is as well.
This is a grant.
It's a grant.
Straight grant.
But
Any
this-
other questions?
The $750 is all grant money?
Yes.
Or- So they would all be given as you see fit?
There are ways to set them up as
Exactly.
revolving loans. This round has all been as a
It's
grant.
great.
And if there are no other comments, I'm going to close this public hearing at 7:05. And we'll get back to our regular agenda. Ricky, I'd like to make a copy of this, and then I'll send the original down to you tomorrow, okay?
Is that the letter from,
From Dory, yes.
you get a copy of
Yeah,
this?
yeah, I'll make copies for everyone. Resolution 307, abstract 9B.
Resolved that the abstract of audit of claims number 9B-10, 2134 to 2264 for $239,581.32, and abstract 9B-10 prepays for 388 to 414 prepays in the amount of $856,953.92. Be received and reviewed by the audit committee, and the supervisor is hereby authorized to pay said abstract.
A motion?
So moved.
Mr. Wood, second.
Second.
Mr. Lemoy, any discussion? Roll call.
Thomas Wood.
Yes.
Martin Mannix.
Yes.
Paul Moy.
Yes.
Bernie Bassett.
Yes, Resolution 308, Parks and Recreation Department monthly report.
Resolved to receive and place on file the report from Melody Devine, Recreation and Youth Director for the month of August 2010.
We have a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Wood, second.
Second.
Mr. Mannix, any discussion? Roll call.
Thomas Wood.
Yes.
Martin Mannix.
Yes.
Paul Moy.
Yes.
Bernie Bassett.
Yes, Resolution 309, Planning Department monthly report.
Resolved to receive and place on file a report from Phil Von Bargen, Planning and Engineering Department Head for the month of September 2010.
A motion.
So moved.
Mr. Wood, second.
Second.
Mr. Lemoy, any discussion? Roll call.
Thomas Wood.
Yes.
Martin Mannix.
Yes.
Paul Moy.
Yes.
Bernie Bassett.
Yes, Resolution 310, Supervisor's monthly financial report.
Resolved to receive and place on file the supervisor's financial report for the month of August 2010.
A motion.
So moved.
Mr. Mannix, second.
Second.
Mr. Lemoy, any discussion? Roll call.
Thomas Wood.
Yes.
Martin Mannix.
Yes.
Paul Moy.
Yes.
Bernie Bassett.
Yes, Resolution 311, Board of Assessment Review appointment.
Whereas Paige Greenville's term will expire on September 30th, 2010, and a vacancy will exist on the Board of Assessment Review. And whereas Ms. Greenville is willing to serve on the board as a member to have a full board, therefore be resolved that the Town Board, Town of Plattsburgh, does hereby appoint Paige Greenville, a resident of Town of Plattsburgh, to the Board of Assessment Review for a term to expire 9/30/15. And to be further resolved that a copy of this resolution be given to the chairman, Mr. Luck, and to the town assessor.
A motion.
So moved.
Mr. Lemoy, second.
Second.
Mr. Wood, any discussion?
These are all the ones that end in September, right?
Yep.
Right.
Everything else
And
is
Did
December.
you got an
Yeah,
updated copy?
no,
Okay.
thanks for that.
That was as observed. Mixed up and confused.
Right, we probably should just send a letter to Paige Rayville acknowledging her previous service and commending her on her.
I made a note as soon as I noticed that wasn't in there, and I don't think I can blame Debbie this time. Roll call.
Thomas Wood.
Yes.
Martin Mannix.
Yes.
Paul Moy.
Yes.
Bernie Bassett.
Yes, Resolution 312, Cernak bus lease for 2010-11 for the town of Plattsburgh.
Resolved that the town board has hereby received the school bus lease agreement dated September 8, 2010 between Saranac Central School District, the town of Saranac, Clinton County, hereafter called leaser, and the town of Plattsburgh as leasing, for leasing a school bus for recreational purposes, commencing on the first day of July 2010 and ending on the 30th day of June 2011, for the sum of $2.45 per mile, the cost of driver, if provided, and subject to the terms and conditions set forth in said lease agreement. And it is further resolved that upon approval of said lease agreement by the town attorney, the supervisor is hereby authorized to execute said lease agreement for the town of Plattsburgh and directed to obtain and initiate through the town of Plattsburgh compliance with all other terms and provision of said lease agreement. It is further resolved that a copy of this resolution be forwarded to Cool Insurance, also to be given to the budget officer, Recreation Department, and one to be kept on file in the town clerk's office.
Motion.
So moved.
Mr. Mannix, second.
Second.
Mr. Lemoy, any discussion?
Did the director check those other ones?
Yes, the shorter version of the response is they hadn't made a change in a number of years, and their auditor had advised them that that needed to be done. Apparently, the Beekman Town District that we also have a contract with was advised the same, and they said, no, the bus is transporting our kids, we're not going to raise it. Took a little different approach. Our rec director, though, has indicated to me the agreement with Cernak is really a backup. We haven't used them in quite some time.
Okay.
So, yeah, they can put almost whatever they want. Any other questions? Roll call.
Thomas Wood?
Yes.
Mark Manick?
Yes.
Paul Lemoy?
Yes.
Bernie Bassett?
Yes. Resolution 313, salt purchase for winter of 2010-2011.
Resolved to receive a letter dated September 13, 2010, from Fred Levine, Superintendent, Highway Superintendent, and requesting permission to purchase 2,300 tons of highway road salt to be used by the town of Plattsburgh Highway Department pursuant to New York State Office of General Services Standard and Purchase Group Contract Number C18391 in the amount not to exceed $142,600. It is further resolved that the town board does hereby grant permission to Fred Levine to order said salt, and the supervisor is hereby authorized to sign any related documents required for its purchase. It is further resolved that the payment of said purchase will be made payable from the 2010-2011 highway budget amounts, DA 51142-14200 and DA 5148-4200, and to be further resolved that a copy of this resolution be given to the budget officer.
A motion? Mr. Lemoy, second.
Second.
Mr. Wood, any discussion?
You should also send a copy.
Result should be a whereas the letter was received.
What is that, Tom?
First resolve should be a whereas the letter was received. Therefore, it's resolved. At the end.
Okay. And we will give a copy to the highway superintendent. Any other discussion? Roll call.
Thomas Wood.
Yes.
Mark Manick.
Yes.
Paul Lemoy.
Yes.
Bernie Bassett.
Yes, Resolution 314, Clinton County Snow and Ice Agreement for 2010-2011 and the 2011-12 snow season.
Whereas the town of Plattsburgh currently provides snow and ice control services to Clinton County for county roads during the winter season. And whereas the Clinton County Highway Superintendent met with town highway superintendents, and it is determined that the towns would enter into an annual snow and ice agreement with the county for the purpose of providing snow and ice control services. Now therefore be resolved that the supervisor be and hereby authorized, upon approval of the town's insured provider and approval as any form by the town attorney, to sign contract number for 2010-2011 and 2011-2012 snow and ice seasons dated August 25th, 2010, with the Clinton County for snow removal, sanding, and treating of all county roads for the 2010-2012 season based on the number of miles and rates according to said agreement. And it is further resolved that the town of Plattsburgh agrees to comply with the terms and conditions spelled out in said agreement, and the county of Clinton is to pay the town of Plattsburgh 2 installments each year in the sum of $4,475 per mile for regular roads and $5,444 per mile for snow belt roads during 2010-2011, and $4,654 per mile for regular roads and $5,662 per mile for snow belt roads during 2011-2012. And it is further resolved that a copy of this resolution be given to the budget officer and to the superintendent of highways, Fred Levine.
Motion. Mr. Lemoy, second.
Second.
Mr. Mannix, any discussion?
Yes, I don't think it's right that they don't increase the amount when the inflation is happening, when it costs more for us to plow the roads, buy the trucks, and to purchase this salt.
Any other discussion? Roll call.
Thomas Wood.
Yes.
Mark Manick.
Yes.
Paul Lemoy.
Yes.
Bernie Bassett.
Yes. Resolution 315, 3% site plan return deposit for Hampton Inn Suites, site plan 207.
Whereas the Town of Plattsburgh Planning Board has reviewed and approved all requirements of the Hampton Inn and Suites Site Plan 2007. And whereas the Hampton Inn and Suites Site Plan 2007 has on file with the Town of Plattsburgh a 3% deposit for construction of their project in the original amount of $7,628 plus accrued interest. And whereas the Planning Department has coordinated an inspection of said project and reports all requirements have been met and complied. And whereas the Hampton Inn and Suites Plan 2007 has requested a 3% deposit in the amount of $7,628 plus accrued interest to date to be returned. Now therefore be resolved that the supervisor is hereby authorized and directed to release the said deposit in the amount of $7,628 plus accrued interest to date. And it is further resolved that a certified copy of this resolution be forwarded by the Planning Department Secretary with the return of the deposit to Adirondack Hospitality LLC, 24 Kennedy Avenue, Plattsburgh, New York, 12901.
Have a motion.
So moved.
Mr. Mannix, second. Mr. Lemoy, any discussion?
Yes, this particular one, do we have, see, the planning department has signed off that everything was done. What about water and sewer?
I don't have a sign off from them, but I believe they're satisfied.
Yeah, we coordinate with them.
They coordinate, talk.
There's a time gap between the point where as-bills are completed, signed off, and this comes to you for releasing of the 3% construction deposit. The record would reflect that the water and sewer department is signed off. It's just not part of this request as it comes to you.
Okay.
We have that.
Roll call.
Thomas Wood.
Yes?
Martin Mannix.
Yes.
Paul Moy.
Yes.
Bernie Bass.
Yes, resolution 316, final payment for Moffett Road Water Project to Luck Brothers, Inc.
Whereas Luck Brothers Incorporated has submitted a request for final payment for work pertaining to the Moffett Road Water Project. And whereas the town has received a release of lien from Luck Brothers Incorporated for the Moffett Road Water Project, and no further release is needed. And whereas LaVerge Group has reviewed and verified said work, now therefore be resolved that the supervisor is hereby authorized to make said payment for the Moffett Road Project voucher dated September 13th, 2010, in the amount of $7,000 to Luck Brothers Incorporated. And it is further resolved that said payment is to be payable to Luck Brothers Incorporated, 73 Trade Road, Plattsburgh, New York, for the Moffett Road Water Project. And a copy of this resolution be given to the budget office.
Have a motion.
So moved.
Mr. Lemoy, second.
Second.
Mr. Mannix, any discussion?
That should be, second whereas, should be no instead of not. And do we have a signed letter from LaVerge?
Yes.
I don't see it here.
I have it. Just didn't copy it. Saved the branch on a tree.
Okay.
The answer to the question is yes.
Bernie, is it necessary for Jim to look over this release of lien, or is that something that happens? Jim?
Yep.
Is that something that you would,
I'd be happy to do it.
I mean, is it necessary, or?
This is the final payment, so I would imagine if there's nothing outstanding, we should be able to release the lien, but we certainly can look at it.
Well, yeah, but a release of lien means that Luck Brothers doesn't owe money to anybody. And I think Paul is saying, should I look at it and see if it makes sense? If you want, I'd be happy to. I assume they're fairly standard, but I'd be happy to take a look. Sure.
Question I've got is this is final payment. Does this include money that might have been withheld? Or we've got that still to come? Because there's usually like 5%, though?
Says it's remainder of the payment.
In terms of the contract.
Okay.
I will check on that.
I think they indicate final payments. I would think that includes retained.
And it's a round number.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this was a disputed amount for for some extras that they were doing, and they wanted more, and they settled on this amount.
That is correct. Well, I will follow up with that. I just leave it at that for now, okay? Any other discussion? Roll call.
Thomas Wood?
Yes.
Mark Mannix?
Yes.
Paul Lemoyne?
Yes.
Bernie Bass?
Yes, resolution 317, purchase request for pickup truck for the highway department.
Resolved to receive a letter dated September 14, 2010, from Fred Levine, Highway Department Superintendent, requesting permission to purchase a new Ford F-250 truck in the amount of $22,130.77 for use by the Town of Plattsburgh Highway Department pursuant to New York State General Services Standard and Purchase Group Contract, and award numbers as current listings in the amount not to exceed $25,000. And it is further resolved that the Town Board does hereby grant permission to Mr. Levine to order said truck, and the supervisor is hereby authorized to sign any related documents required to the purchase. And it is further resolved that payment for said purchase be made payable from 2010-2011 DA 5142-4200 account, and a copy of this resolution be given to the budget officer.
Have a motion.
So moved.
Mr. Lemoyne, second.
Second.
Mr. Mannix, any discussion?
Yeah, I just want to commend Mr. Levine. This truck is going to be 7 years old, and we're going to basically buy a new truck for 50 cents on the dollar. Get a $25,000 truck for probably around 12 grand after we sell the old truck. The way this equipment's being maintained, he's to be commended, and the fact that we're buying this one and only spending half the amount of money is commendable to his department.
I walked into the situation, and had to eat humble pie because I didn't know how old this truck was, and I certainly didn't believe it was a 2004, and made a comment along the lines of, well, why would we be selling that truck? And he told me it was a 2004, and I was like aghast, because it is